Welcome to the Panic Room, where we talk about all things panic-inducing. I am the Queen of Panic. Warning, some episodes may contain content that may be disturbing to others. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let the games begin.
Before I knew what was happening, my mother was wrenching the knife from my cousin and screaming at him. When he cried out, she wrenched his hands behind his back and shoved him to the ground. Maddie floated behind her, a wicked smile on her freckly face. The world made sense again. Tipping my head back, I watched my mother calmly and politely restrain my cousin. Meanwhile, my younger cousin was laughing in the corner. If there was anything Maddie loved more than terrorizing her cousins, it was seeing her brother get his ass kicked. Dad was in front of me, cradling my face. His fingertips tiptoed across my bruises, soothing them.
It's okay, sweetie. I'm here. Daddy's here.
He moved to untie Rowan, gently lifting my knocked-out brother onto his back. Ophelia shakily got to her feet, swiping at her teary eyes. I knew she was trying to hide them, but was failing miserably. Mom's eyes found mine, and I knew what she was going to say. She was ashamed of her children who could not fight back. If the Delacroix kids were seen as weak, then we would be targets. Lifting my sister into the air, my mother pressed her face into Ophelia's curls.
I think you're old enough to learn,
She said.
how to be a Delacroix.
My mom's words sounded like ocean waves crashing onto the shore. I could still feel the blades stuck to my throat, teasing a death I knew wouldn't come for a while. Because I already knew when I was going to die, and it wasn't inside a grody storage container at 8 years old, at the mercy of my psycho cousin. I don't know if my mom was a psychic, or maybe it's a mother's intuition. Halfway through an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, just a few weeks prior, she ruined our lives with 4 words.
You're going to die.
Mom stepped in front of the TV and switched it off, so I know it was serious. I snapped to attention, and Rowan, who was sitting next to me frowning at his Pokemon game, lifted his head, blinking. Mom might have looked like she was in a casual mom mode, her hair still damp from a shower, peanut butter smudged on her lip, but she wasn't smiling, her hands planted on her hips.
Listen to me very carefully.
She said, her expression softening.
The 3 of you are going to die.
Ophelia knelt on the floor with a book on her lap, looked up, a pen in her mouth. Rowan laughed before disguising it with a cough.
What?
I thought Mom meant that we were too weak, that one day an enemy of our family was going to succeed in killing us. No. Mom knew the exact time and date we were going to die. I was going to die at 18 years old, 10 years away, and yet suddenly felt like every minute and second mattered. The world looks different when you're told your death is inevitable. Murder. The word felt tangled and knotted. We were going to be murdered in what she guessed was a planned attack, but she didn't know who our killer was. Mom broke down, pleading with us to understand that she and our father were hunting down our future killers, and she promised nothing was going to happen. Squeezing my hand so tight, my mother's smile was watery.
But
I tugged my hand away. All of the breath sucked from my lungs. There was always a but.
we haven't found them yet.
Her voice didn't sound real. Rowan started shouting, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. Mom said the date as if it was concrete, like it was going to happen. 3/5/2024. Rowan and Ophelia were scheduled to die at 4:13 and 4:17 p.m., while I would die 40 minutes later at 4:50 p.m.
How do you even know this?
Rowan argued. She didn't reply, only hugging him instead. Mom was confident that she could turn us into killers in 10 years. Because the only way of living past 18 was killing our future killers. So, after the Liam incident, we had no choice. Our brutal training regimen began. I can't say I agreed with it at the beginning. Get up, eat breakfast, go to school, train, eat dinner, train, go to bed. Do it all over again. Dad taught us self-defense classes in the morning, and Mom led weapons training in the afternoon. Our house was big enough, so in the morning after breakfast, Dad cleaned out the basement, converting it into a makeshift training gym. I had to learn how to take a punch to the face. Dad was gentle in his tactics, only growing strict when we weren't pulling our weight and awarding us with candy. We started with plastic dummies. I had to hit them as many times as possible. Then Dad paired me up with Ophelia. Whoever pinned their opponent first was awarded an ice cream for supper. Initially, neither one of us wanted to fight each other. I felt awkward, my feet sinking into the mat. Ophelia tried to kick me and tripped over her own leg. So, Dad tried a different tactic.
Insult each other.
Dad said from the sidelines.
No bad words. Just air out your opponent's flaws.
Call her the B word.
Rowan shouted with a laugh.
No, there is no reason for using bad words.
Our father said.
I want you to get used to fighting back. Start with using words.
You always use your toothbrush with your gross mouth,
Ophelia spoke up with a squeak.
and you use my toothpaste.
Her words gritted my teeth together. You snore, I retorted, my cheeks heating up. You sound like a pig. At first, I barely felt the sharp impact of her hand slapping my face. I think it was shock. Before our father clapped his hands.
That's right, Poppy. Now I want you to use your hands.
I could barely control myself when I hit back, this time shoving her to the ground. Ophelia jumped to her feet and kicked me in the stomach.
That's too harsh.
Dad said.
No kicking. Copy what I demonstrated.
Ignoring him, I kicked Ophelia in the leg and was immediately grounded. He reiterated his rules.
I don't want you two to fight each other. I want you to take each other down.
So, that's what we did. It took months of training for me to be able to take my sister down, then my brother, and after a few years, I was pinning my own father. Our parents would pay friends to sneak up on us. Expect the unexpected was what they nailed into our heads. Our murderers could be anyone and anywhere. As a kid, I failed. I jumped into a woman's car posing as our great Aunt Helen, only for her to drug my apple soda and take me right back home, where my awaiting mother chastised me for being naive. In my defense, I did have a great Aunt Helen, and this woman did look like a Helen. When I stepped into our kitchen at 13 years old, tired from school and training, my mom was baking cookies. She twisted around, pivoting on her heel, pulling a gun from her apron.
Bang!
She said, pointing it at my head.
I just killed you, honey.
I was already struggling to grab my own.
Bang!
Mom said again.
I killed you again.
Mom, wait! I was too slow. My brain foggy.
3 shots in the head, Poppy.
She said in a sing-song voice.
Your brains are currently splattered all over the walls.
You can't kill me 3 times, I said, struggling to find the right trajectory. Mom lowered her weapon when I mimed shooting her in the face.
That's how fast it is, sweetie. Bad people do not hesitate.
She shot around into the window and I had to stop myself from flinching.
Why are you hesitating?
Because you're my mother, Mom sighed, turning back to her cookies, swapping her gun for a heart-shaped cookie cutter.
How was school?
Fine. Dropping my weapon on the counter, I grabbed apple juice from the refrigerator. However, after remembering my brother drugging himself yesterday in a poison exercise, I slowly put it back. I did get better at training. After years of the exact same regimen, I stopped feeling human, more like a soldier. Mom was right. She was slowly and successfully turning us into killers. When she brought real people into target practice, I stopped seeing them as humans. I stopped crying when the bullet made an impact. I stopped slamming my hands over my mouth, my gun trembling in my grasp. Targets would bleed, and I ignored them. The only thing that mattered was the magnum molded into my palm, my index inching towards the trigger. I remember holding my first gun at the age of 8. My hands were clammy and clumsy, struggling to get a proper grip. Mom told me that person could have been my killer, so I wasn't allowed to hesitate. My hands were not allowed to shake. By the age of 16, I used every waking minute to train. Rowan took me down in a self-defense exercise, only for me to leap back onto his back and rip out his hair. Dad called it fighting with emotion. He told me to take a walk around the yard and come back when I was less agitated. I knew my brother and sister's weak spots at this point, but they knew mine too. I threw a punch, aiming for his neck to destabilize him, but he was already tracking my moves, narrowed eyes drinking all of me in. With a single kick to the groin area, I was lying on my back, staring at the ceiling, and Dad was shouting at me to try again. I did, this time pinning him. But he was fiercely competitive, knocking me back onto my ass. We all had our respective talents. Rowan was our best fighter, accompanying Dad on assignments as the brawn. There were a surprising number of teen gang members, and even as a 14-year-old, Rowan easily brought them to their knees, cementing himself as a Delacroix. I'm pretty sure his obsession to be the best came from our cousin's beatings when we were kids. Dad taught him how to channel his anger into fighting. Liam had permanently scarred him both mentally and physically. He had a scar just below his left eye. Rowan was overly obsessed with bringing down Uncle Wes because it meant killing our cousin. But Dad told us to bide our time. Fee was our second best fighter. I enjoyed watching her whooping our brother's ass. Ophelia had dark brown hair to her butt and refused to get it cut, wearing it in a ponytail. When she was fighting, her hair was a tripping hazard. I was more comfortable with a knife. I could still fight, easily defending myself, but I felt better with a blade or gun in my hands. As I grew up, I stopped feeling emotion completely. Expect the unexpected, our parents would nail into our heads. Mom tried to catch me off guard when I was still half asleep, only for me to shoot a round right past her head. Shooting was like muscle memory now. I was exactly what she wanted me to be. I didn't hesitate. She didn't say anything, but I knew my mom was proud. 18 years old arrived, and on the day of our murder, I was ready. Mom still insisted on us attending school, so I was making my way home. 3/5/2024. The same uneasy thought had been twisting in my stomach all day. I was going to die at 4:50 p.m. I glanced at my phone. Nothing from my parents, so my siblings were still good. 4:46. There was someone following me. By the shape of the shadow, it was a man, middle-aged, trench coat, definitely alone, and didn't seem to have a phone. Another glance at my phone, 4:47. There was a text from my friend that I ignored. I swiped it away, stuffing my phone in my pocket. Closer. This was it.
Poppy?
The man's voice tickled the back of my neck. His voice was low, almost a whisper.
It is Poppy, isn't it?
His steps started to quicken.
Could I talk to you?
I felt almost intoxicated, excited with the idea of taking down my killer. My breaths were heavy. Closer. Twisting around, my hands were already wrapped around the butt of my gun, just like my mother taught me. With one shot, he was dead. Thankfully, we lived in the middle of nowhere, so there was nobody around. I dropped to my knees next to his body, my hands shaking. First, I checked his pocket. Cigarettes, a lighter, and a leather-bound notepad. I threw all of that away, my hands landing on an envelope. Curious, I emptied it, only to find multiple pictures of smiling children. All of them had giant red X's drawn all over their faces, and among them, photos of me, Rowan, and Ophelia. So my would-be murderer was a creep after all. Still, I killed him. I jumped to my feet, unable to resist a shriek of excitement. I almost cried, my chest heaving. Mom and Dad had turned us into killers, but crying felt so fucking good. Human. When I got home, I greeted my family in song. Mom! I stepped out of my shoes, unloading my gun. Guess what? I did a little dance. I killed my killer! I was halfway across the threshold when I felt it. Something wet, warm, leaking under my socks. It had been almost 5 years since I felt that sensation. Creepy crawlies skittering up my spine and filling my mouth. My eyes followed the scarlet puddle, finding my sister's body, twisted and mangled out of shape. Her hands had been snapped off, her legs impossibly bent. Like a monster had chewed her up and spat her back out in disjointed pieces. In front of me, my mother was standing with Rowan's headless torso over her shoulder, a wide smile across her lips. Polluted eyes resembling nothing staring back. My sweet mother, wearing her heart-shaped apron, was a monster. My brother's eyes had been burned from his sockets, his mouth carved from his face, almost resembling a manic, skeletal grin. A single glance at the clock on the wall told me it was 4:49 p.m., which couldn't be right. Mom? Dropping my backpack, I ducked to grab the knife sandwiched in my sock. Mom's smile was bright, and yet so fucking inhuman.
You didn't even hesitate. I'm so proud.
Before something cold and cruel sliced across my throat. Dad.
What did I say?
Dad chuckled in my ear.
Expect the unexpected.
I woke up hanging off my father's shoulder, bleeding out, my breaths strangled, my words nonsensical. Around us, there was nothing. We were no longer inside our house. There was only a single bright light illuminating a giant pit in the ground. Dad spoke to me while hauling my brother's body to the chasm. He waited a moment before letting out a disappointed sigh.
Your mother and I found something a long time ago when we were working as field agents.
He hummed.
It promised us money and power as long as we allowed it to consume.
Mom kicked Ophelia into the pit with a disgusted snort.
It promised us children as strong and powerful as us. Children who could take over the family business and continue to feed it long after we were gone. Heirs that could fight alongside us.
Mom continued.
But of course, we are yet to find them.
She grabbed me, dragging my body across the ground.
Perhaps if you had actually been trained properly, Poppy, maybe you and your siblings could have been exceptions.
I only heard her latter words.
Oh well, perhaps the next orphans will be better.
Before she flung me over the edge where I just managed to cling on. I waited to bleed out, to lose consciousness and drop into oblivion. But after 5 minutes of using all of my upper body strength to hang on, I risked grazing my fingers over my throat. I could still feel the wound, but it didn't feel like it was gaping anymore. Mom and Dad left a while after waiting. By that time, I had enough strength to haul myself onto solid ground. For a moment, I stared at the ceiling, panting for breath. I rolled into my stomach and grasped for my knife, but it was gone. Fuck. When I turned to leave, the pit grumbled. The ground trembled beneath me. Twisting around, I instinctively reached for a weapon. I lost my breath when a single hand appeared, grasping onto the ground for dear life. I started towards the pit before running footsteps sent me stumbling back.
Fuck. It can't be.
Mom appeared, Dad following behind her.
We've been feeding potential Delacroix heirs to this thing for 50 years, and now it responds?
I didn't stay behind to let them test their luck with me again. following the tunnel back into our house, I made it back into daylight, into fresh air. I've been keeping a low profile for the last few weeks. I can't sleep. I can't eat. My hands are shaking. All I see is the pit. Those psychos pretended to be my parents. I am terrified of being captured again. I can't stop shaking. I'm fucking alone. Last night, I heard the Delacroix children killed my parents' main rivals. I guess Rowan and Ophelia really are officially part of the family business. If you would like to submit your stories, please check out the Panic Within subreddit. I go over those stories that are submitted, and I go ahead and I narrate them. I say go over, but I narrate all of them. So if you are interested in something like that, go ahead and take a look in the description, and you'll find the link there. We also have a Discord. You can come and hang out and get spooky with me and other narrators. We post new content, up-and-coming videos, promotions, and we also just hang out and chat, and you can come and hang out with us there. If you're interested in that, link is also in the description below. And last but not least, if you are interested in doing a collab with the King of Panic or myself, you can absolutely reach out if you're another creator. You can do one on our channel. We can do one with you. We are completely open for collab as of right now. Looking for new stuff to do and very excited for anybody who reaches out. The best way to do that is through Twitter or Discord. I do check Instagram and I will get back. It just might take a little longer because I'm super bad at that, but I've been trying to be better. So if you do reach out there, even if it takes a couple days, I'll be there. But like I said, we're excited. So please definitely reach out and we're looking forward to it. And as always, thank you for visiting the Panic Room. You have successfully made it to the next portion of your tour. Please stay tuned for your next prompt. Click the like button and subscribe to receive notifications for when the next portion of your tour is ready to join. Thank you for watching. Don't let the panic drown you.